Syracuse because of some of our special capabilities, the most significant of which is the 30mm gun pod. We're the only unit in the Air Force that carries the 30mm gun pod on the F-16. And because it's an anti-tank weapon, and because of the capability that Saddam had and the number of tanks that he had, a lot of the unit.
The A-10 Warthog ground attack plane was flown by the boys from Syracuse in the early 1980s. In the late 1980s, they switched to the F-16, sometimes called the FA-16, Fighter Attack 16, to emphasize its strike role.
The 174th TAC Fighter Wing has a culture of close air support going back to the late 1950s. And that culture has a lot to do with our understanding of that mission and our effectiveness in performing that mission. Now, we performed that mission first in the F-86H, then in the A-37B, onto the A-10A, and now in the FA-16. And one of the reasons that this unit was chosen to be the leading FA-16 unit in the United States Air Force was the stability of our organization and that culture, and the feeling that we very well understood that mission and could do a good job of assessing the applicability of the FA-16 to the close air support mission, and also to its effectiveness in that mission and how it should be most properly employed. So we've enjoyed, literally enjoyed, being on the leading edge of developing the FA-16 concept. And the airplane, of course, fills the mission extremely well. It does virtually everything that its predecessor, the A-10, did, equally or more effectively, and it provides a whole lot of new performance and weapons delivery options that are just physically not possible with the A-10 aircraft.
In view of its experience in the ground attack role, the boys from Syracuse were one of 2 Air National Guard wings selected to provide an F-16 squadron to the Desert Storm Strike Force. The South Carolina Air National Guard provided a squadron from its 169th Tactical Fighter Group.
Well, first, the Air Guard trains for rapid deployment. Fighter units, many of them are supposed to be ready to be able to move in 72 hours. Desert Shield Storm was proof of some of that for the units that were called up. You don't get much warning time, and you have to go and do something somewhere. But after all, that's what we train for. The whole purpose of the Guard is Air Guard is to be ready for that, for any emergencies, contingencies, be ready to take these airplanes anywhere in the world on a very short notice, deploy and fight, be able to survive, feed yourself, take care of yourself. We proved that we could do it.
For the Guardsmen, the beginning of the Desert Storm mission would be an unprecedented flight, all the way from their base in upstate New York to the Persian Gulf.
We had a flight on the way over. The flight was 13 hours nonstop. We did 10 air refuelings. It was 9 hours of the flight was at night, so we flew most of it as soon as we got off the coast of Boston. The sun went down, and we flew most of it at night, so we didn't get to see the deep cold water below us. And we flew over the Med, and then finally the sun came up over Egypt, and we were almost to Saudi Arabia. We'd been up for almost 24, 36 hours, and we were somewhat relieved to see that the weather was very nice where we were going. As it turned out, however, the base that we were at had a big sandstorm, so we had to land in somewhat lousy conditions with the visibility dropped down to about a half a mile. But there we were 13 and a half hours later, nearly 6,000 or more miles away from our home base. Here we were, a short couple weeks ago, Guardsmen in civilian lives, and now we're over in the leading edge of one of our country's significant military involvements.
The boys from Syracuse were stationed at Al-Kaj Air Base, along with the South Carolina Air National Guard Squadron and F-15E Strike Eagles from the active duty Air Force units. The sands of Saudi Arabia were a big change from the woodlands outside Syracuse, New York. And on the 17th of January, 1991, the air war began.
We were stationed at Al-Kaj, Saudi Arabia, which is the beginning of a huge Arab air base. But the only thing in there now is a huge runway, parallel taxiway, and a ramp. Big ramp for a parking place for all our airplanes. We had to build tents and temporary shelters for everything that we wanted to shelter. Eating tents, living tents, office tents, portable aircraft hangars, portable buildings that expand trailer style. We had to put down clay to harden the ground enough that the tent pegs would stay in it. We had probably over close to 600 tents for living in. Huge tent city, about 5,000 people under canvas. In the winds, in the winter, in the hot part of the summer, we stayed in that area, and it was on the north edge of the empty quarter of the Arabian Desert. We had the normal things that go with the desert. We didn't have water. We had to truck it in. We didn't have food. That had to be trucked in. We had no munitions. That had to all be brought in. We had no fuel, gasoline. All of these things had to be flown in, brought in, or made there, including our electricity, which we ran a huge power plant with generators. It was the barest of the bare bases for the Air Force, the biggest of the bare bases, one of the most effective. We dropped, during the war, we dropped 12% of all the munitions dropped during the war, and it came out of Al-Karj. A huge munitions dump. There were 24 hours a day of activity. People worked consecutive days through the whole war, and we had constant airplanes coming in, bringing more munitions, more trucks coming in, bringing the 3 million pounds of jet fuel we needed a day. It was a constant struggle just to keep going. There were dust storms that would last a couple days at a time. There was heat, it was cold. In the winter, we had frost. Then it would get up to 85, 90 during the day, and then get cold again at night. So you're never always comfortable. You had to do something continually to stay comfortable. If you had to work outdoors during the heat of the day, you needed water, and you needed a lot of it. It was quite an operation. When you get done, you have a tendency to sit back and say, did we do all that? But yeah, we did. At the time, it didn't seem unusual, didn't seem any more than normal. You had to eat and do your job. But now looking back, you say, wow. It was the eighth wonder of the world. If there were 7 ancient wonders, this Al-Karj under tents had to be the 8th wonder of the world.